Hello and welcome back to Dukascopy HQ for the last interview of the trading week. It's been quite literally fistfights at dawn in the Venezuelan political arena. So here to give us an update is Elias Ashkar of the UBIS University. Elias, thank you very much for coming in.
Thank you. It's a good pleasure to be back here again.
Now, to start with, from a political perspective, where do we see Venezuela post-election and its status today?
Well, at the moment, actually, there's nothing but political chaos in Venezuela. Venezuela today is a country that is split right across the middle, bitterly divided, and even this split. If you recall, the results of the elections were very, very tight. Even by the government account, the government gave the opposition 49.3% and gave to Maduro 50.6%. So that is very, very tight. As a matter of fact, when the government announced the results, there were a lot of violence in the street. 8 people died and hundreds were injured. Now, what is really critical now is the fact that Nicolas Maduro is a president, but the opposition saying he stole the election. And Capriles, the opposition leader, he basically did not concede. He called for a recount of the vote, and that situation is not helping to stabilize the political situation. At the same time, last Tuesday in the parliament meeting, there was a lot of fistfights between the opposition and the supporters of the government. As a result, you have 9 people who were injured, 6 from the opposition, including a lady parliamentarian. She had a broken nose and a collar around her neck, and another gentleman who appeared on TV, very swollen, very bloody face. So I guess that is going to probably not help the situation to calm down, and we will create a lot of volatility and question marks, uncertainties.
What issues then and key challenges is President Maduro likely to face now and also as we head into the future?
You will recall last time we met, we said Maduro will probably win the election, and he did. We also said he was a lucky candidate to ride on a wave of emotions in support of Chavez after he died, but we also said he's probably an unlucky president to face a lot of challenges. There are many of them. If we were to look at these challenges from a political and economic point of view, in the short term on the political front, he has a question of legitimacy. How is he going to deal with that? Also, he needs to stabilize the political chaos. He needs to bring stability to the political scene in Venezuela. In the longer term, he has other big issues. He needs to first establish his own power base. And especially he needs to be on close and tight relationship with the military diaspora. You know, he's not Chavez. Chavez came from the military background. He's got the military very strongly behind him. In addition to that, you know, within the Chavez camp now that Chavez is not here, there's also rivalry. So is he going to be able to keep the Chavez camp together? In addition to that, if he wants to govern, he needs to reach across the aisle to the competition, to the opposition, because you have 50% of the country, they don't really recognize him. And lastly, I think the dealing with crimes and corruption is a big, big issue. On the economy front, though, in the short term, they have some really major issues: very high inflation, lack of availability of hard currency, and in the same time, he has big issues with making hard currency available for people to be able to import products. You know, Venezuela last year imported $59 billion worth of items, and they needed hard currency for that. So these are really major, major issues. In the longer term, though, there are major challenges. First, huge budget he has to deal with, and then he has to deal with the infrastructure that is falling big time. I mean, his oil production, now they're about 1 million barrels below what they were 10 years ago. And you know, the oil is everything for Venezuela. So he needs to plow money in there. He needs to diversify the economy. He needs to create an environment to encourage also foreign investors rather than to nationalize and upset everybody.
What is the most likely scenario in terms of possible changes in policy, both internally and externally? And what can we see this new administration putting into place in the future?
The changes in policy are many and they are necessary. The question is, where does he start from and what can he do? So the challenge is, first, on the one hand, having to consolidate his own position while in the same time trying to balance the economy, and that is really not an easy task. Now, what he will be able to do primarily depends on three key things. First, is he going to be able to consolidate his position and present himself as a legitimate? Because if you need to change policies, you need support. He also needs to reach across the aisle to the opposition, because now there's a political gridlock. But the number one most important criteria is the price of oil. Depending on the price of oil, it will either make him or break him. Because without the oil, he's not going to be able to do much. So price of oil is very critical to him being able to make some adjustment to the policies.
You have this saying, no man is an island, and I guess the same now extends to Venezuela in terms of its foreign relations. You've already mentioned there Cuba, but you've got China, Russia, the US. How do you see these relationships moving forward now?
Okay, that's a very good question. I think let's start with the closest ally, which is Cuba. In the short term, I think Nicolas Maduro, the president, he will probably adopt Raúl Castro as his mentor, just like Chavez adopted Fidel Castro as his mentor. And I think he needs that. So I can see very close cooperation, and subsidies will continue, etc., because Cuba will be in a mess economically without these subsidies. Longer term, whether he will be able to maintain these subsidies or not, it's anybody's guess. As we said, it depends on the price of oil. On the other hand, I think the biggest winner in terms of close relationship and benefit will be China. China is coming very, very close, and they want to forge much closer relationship. And also he wants to do the same with China, because China bankrolls Venezuela. As a matter of fact, Chavez borrowed $38 billion from China. In return, you give us oil. And China, big economy, and they need oil, and Venezuela is hugely rich with oil. So I think we will see the relationship with China getting even stronger and closer. He probably also needs to get closer to Russia, because Russia will help him to develop his oil industry and so on. Remaining the big question, what happens with the US? And Reverend Jesse Jackson tried so hard with a very nice speech during the funeral of Hugo Chavez to say, we live on the same continent, we have so much in common, we need to cooperate. I thought it was a little bit almost of an emotional speech. I thought that would change things. But so far, the rhetoric coming from Maduro is not very promising. Longer term, I think it will continue to be a rocky relationship. Again, depending on whether he's able to merge to be a strong leader or not, that will give him a leeway to maybe improve the relationship. And if he really wants to prosper, at the end of the day, he cannot be always on the wrong side, leftist and against anything that is capitalist. He needs companies, he needs investors, and he needs to change that course.
Elias, thank you very much. This is a topic that's going to be rippling across a lot of different markets, so we appreciate your comments on this matter.
Natalie, thank you very much for having me. It's always a pleasure to be here.
That's all we've got time for right now. So from all of us here at Dukascopy TV HQ, have a great weekend, and we look forward to seeing you on Monday with more exclusive interviews. Goodbye for now.